For clothes that Tristan long
Feller in the white.
Shout to the taxi cab to get.
Everybody stick around because...
While everyone and their grandma today knows the celebrity chefs of our era due to this little thing called
the internet,
it's safe to assume that the average Joe Schmo walking back home from his 9 to 5 wouldn't recognize those culinary elites who, while perhaps even more accomplished, lack the recognition their reality TV and movie appearing peers get. So anyways, I like food, I like chefs, I like history. So I thought to myself, why not combine all these things and take a deep dive into this little series I'm calling Ancient Chefs of History. So what is a celebrity anyways? Well, the dictionary definition has it as a famous person, especially in entertainment or sport. But if you were to go back in time prior to mass entertainment and sporting events, a time when people weren't busy keeping up with the Kardashians, but rather more focused on keeping up with the barley supply to their feudal lords and surviving the coming winter. The original celebrities in ancient times were the heroes, the men and women of mythology, sagas and lore whose tall tale the population spread by word of mouth till someone wrote them down. Their great exploits were eventually written down, continued by others, and expanded on. These are your Gilgameshes, Hercules, and Beowulfs. But as cultures were developing, we started focusing more attention on the heroes of our times as well. People whose greatness stemmed in their work. These would be your philosophers, politicians, religious leaders, soldiers, and even athletes. For example, with the creation of the ancient Olympic Games, the runner Leonidas of Rhodes became so acclaimed that after his death, he was worshipped as a local deity in his island. Fun fact, he even held the record for most Olympic wins, 12 over 4 Olympic Games between 164 BC and 152 BC. That is until Michael Phelps surpassed him in 2016. I mean, I can see why they worship this guy. He had a record which stood over 2,000 years. I can even keep a high score at my local arcade over the weekend because Stephen McCann goes there during his lunch break and just demolishes Dance Dance Revolution. So, as we began to focus more on the people of our time, we also began to write more about them. That's why history kind of works to begin with. We have all these written records. But you may be wondering how this relates to chefs. Was there some badass warrior chef who used his Damascus steel knife to slay a giant rat in the pantry? Probably. Maybe. I don't know. The chefs we're going to be taking a look at in this series all have some sort of written textual record that survived history. Or had something written about them. Marcus Gavius Apicius was a wealthy Roman who lived sometime in the 1st century AD during the reign of Tiberius. And he was the first proper foodie in history, a true gourmet and a lover of all things luxury. Think of the Futurama grape robot guy. That's him. Literally, the quintessential negative Roman stereotype. When you think of a wealthy Roman individual lounging around eating figs and grapes while being fanned with palm leaves, it's him. It's this guy. Or at least that's what we think he looked like. We didn't have cameras back then, so take this artist's rendition for what you may. Apicius was a true gourmand, a connoisseur of good foods who often indulged in eating too much. If he had access to the internet back then, he probably would have made avocado-style mukbangs. In his time, he was well known and even celebrated as a glutton, to the point even Appian Plestinaices, a famous Greek teacher and a commentator on Homer, wrote about him, On the Luxury of Apicius, a work which is now unfortunately lost. Apicius had an interesting role, as he was provided money by the Roman government to organize extravagant and lavish dinner parties for foreign dignitaries. These were held in order for the government to show off the luxuries of Roman lifestyle and cuisine to the diplomats visiting the capital. So in a sense, not much has changed in the world. In his life, Apicius established a cooking school and was the inspiration for a host of later culinary institutions as well. He spent his time learning about, acquiring, and eating food, and as such, he was described as the patron saint of cooks. He's also credited with writing 2 cookbooks, one on general recipes and one on sauces, but unfortunately none of these have survived. However, many speculate that some of his recipes have made it into a surviving cookbook, but I'll get to this later. First, I just want to gloss over some interesting deeds our guy Marcus Gavius Apicius did. He persuaded the emperor's son to not eat cabbage sprouts as, they are but a common food. A very Paris Hilton-esque power move to not appear as a commoner. He truly would have been a trendsetter today. It was said that Apicius was born to enjoy every extravagant luxury that could be contrived. His advice on red mullet was to first marinate them in a bath of fish sauce, which was also made from red mullet. To eat the fish, you have to bathe the fish in fish. So to be honest, this isn't that bad of an advice. Like, yeah, this sounds legit. I'm definitely trying this later tonight. Apicius had advice on a lot of dishes, but most famously, if you happen perchance to be eating flamingo, Apicius advises you to try the tongue, as he believed the flamingo's tongue was of superb flavour. He came up with new production methods. Using a method of making foie gras, aka fatty goose liver, he created a new method of producing pork liver, where he fed his pigs fried figs and unalived them with an axis of mulsum, aka honeyed wine. Which, number one, brutal. Death by honey wine wasn't on my bingo card of things I'd read about today, but that's pretty metal. Unless the pigs already had a prior problem with alcohol, in which case, shame on Apicius for being an enabler.
Shame!
But number two begs the question if the pigs were raised on a diet of wine. Is this some sort of ancient Roman Wagyu beef we never heard of? And in case your moral compass is off and you're somewhat tempted to try this, don't. Because once the pigs get a taste of wine, next they'll be smoking cigarettes and critiquing French New Wave cinema.
Jean-Louis, you, my brother, are an idiot and an imbecile. Not only is your choice of Sauvignon vastly inferior to my Pinot Noir, but your analysis of Truffaut's The 400 Blues is that of a nincompoop. You are the reason why Mama left.
Merde.
Anyways, back to the deeds of Apicius. But perhaps most famously, having heard the gossip of fishermen about the largeness and sweetness of the shrimps caught near the Libyan coast, Apicius left his home in Minturnea, in the Campania region, and made haste as he set sail to the Libyan coast. But when he arrived, he was disappointed by the shrimps offered to him by the local fishermen who came up to his boat. He compared them to the delicious crawfish he was accustomed to at his villa, and with that, he turned around and returned home without even going ashore. I'm still in awe over this. I mean, this has to show you how eccentric this guy was in his quest for great food. This is a modern equivalent of hopping in a private airplane and taking it to the other side of the world, just because you saw an Insta post about some hip restaurant. Actually, yeah, that's not too far-fetched for today's celebrities. Yeah. No, but you know what? This is still impressive. To put this into perspective for you, at the time of Apicius, Libya was in the other side of the known world. This isn't a quick trip down the road to your local 7-Eleven because they got a 2-for-1 special in their slushies, or a quick trip in your Gulfstreamer to fly from one side of LA to the other. This would have been an over 1,000 kilometer boat ride down the Mediterranean. That would have lasted anywhere from 11 to 26 days. All of this just because you heard gossip from fishermen. But did this actually happen?
It never happened. It happened. This one was invented by a writer. A similar story happened to a young man in the Pacific Northwest about 20 years ago.
Like most cool historical stories, it's difficult to be 100% certain. But they do paint a picture of his lifestyle. And for the sake of this video, we'll just believe it as the truth. Now, you may be wondering how this then modern day Bacchus came to his end. And that's a good question. So let me ask you this. Did he get trampled to death by wine-drunk pigs he was preparing to eat? Drowned in a river after eating a big lunch of crocodile jerky and flamingo legs? Died after eating a poisonous plant in his quest for true flavor? Was beheaded by an angry fishmonger due to his insult to the catch of the day? If you guessed C, you were kinda right. You see, his extravagant parties didn't come cheap, and our guy Apicius spent over 100 million sesterti throwing them. Upon finding out he only had 10 million sesterti left, he became devastated and afraid that he would have to live the rest of his life in poverty. So, in order to avoid this, and in accordance with his diva life, he poisoned himself. Now, it's difficult to put this into a modern perspective, as most banks or currency exchange places don't exactly carry around ancient Roman coins. So we can't just see their worth compared to the dollar or euro. But the sestertius, or sesterce, were these large brass coins during the empire. But even knowing what they look like and what they were made of, it's almost impossible to put an exact monetary value on them due to this thing called inflation. Now, I ain't exactly the best at math.
I did go to an art school after all.
So I'm just going to trust the strangers on the internet and assume that they're right. With that said, 100 million sesterti would be the modern equivalent of around $100 million today. Or maybe even $1 billion. You know, this Apicius guy kinda sounds like your average uni student. Except their quest for true flavor is cheap beer and dollars to ramen. And after a pricey night out, buying drinks for girls you have no chance with.
No chance!
And blowing through your entire college savings, who hasn't thought of downing a hemlock smoothie? So, we discussed the man. Now, let's discuss the book that shares his name. Dere Cucinaria, The Art of Cooking, or more commonly known as the Apicius, is one of the oldest surviving cookbooks in history. It is a collection of over 400 Roman recipes, but they mainly aim towards the wealthier classes, so it isn't the most accurate account of your average Roman's diet. The Apicius was likely not compiled till 400 years after Marcus Gavius Apicius' death, so I don't want to really make it confusing, but it is thought to be named after another Apicius, who was also a gastronomer. But the Apicius slowly wasn't written by MGA, nor was it written by Apicius, the other one. Just kind of think of the Apicius as a giant melting pot of ancient recipes. So, some of the best recipes of the Apicius do include our previous Apicius' recipes from his household. As it is with modern cookbooks, you'll often see difficult to find or rare expensive ingredients. But with the Apicius, you'll run into a different problem. The problem of extinction. Some of the ingredients just no longer exist on our planet, or just are not sold in our grocery stores. For example, many of the recipes contain silphium, a now extinct plant which was used as a herb in a lot of recipes. Another frequent ingredient is garum, the infamous fermented fish sauce, which is present in almost all of the recipes, even the desserts. The book is divided into 10 sections ranging from cooking methods chefs should know to sections on seafoods and vegetables, animals with 2 legs, animals with 4 legs. Now, I think the best way to finish this episode will be with a nice quiet ASMR preparation of a recipe fit for Apicius, from the Apicius. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.